Part of society has constantly been polluting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You got to start here first.
Of course.
And this whole health movement is a start of what you're talking about.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
However, I think it's important to recognize that there's a difference between somebody who is eating raw food and somebody who has chosen to eat raw food.
Explain.
Somebody who chooses to eat raw food is choosing consciously to do something for their health. They are taking care of their body because they recognize the sacredness of their body. Somebody who eats raw food involuntarily may still not care about their body. So you can't force somebody to eat raw food
No, of course not.
and expect them to suddenly become better. You have to change what is the driving force behind it. And you can only do that by example and love. But it's
And
not
environment.
environment
Is key, because all of what we're facing right now is we are producing human beings, right? And as we produce human beings, we're producing human consciousness. And within human consciousness, this is why Ken Wilber is so important. So here, I'm going to go into this a little bit. Within human consciousness, you have two basic things that happen within human consciousness. You have a transition or cycling through states, right? Waking, dreaming, sleeping, sex, meditation, hatred, love, states of consciousness. So states and structures. And in structures, you have stages of structures, such as human development. And structures are very, very important, because all structures of consciousness contain everything that came before. Everything that came before. Why that's important is because we can create environments, i.e., what's around us, the building, the community, the streets, the parks, the food we eat, things we grow, we can create consciously. Just like we're eating consciously right now, if enough of us come together, we can consciously build. We can consciously create environments in which people come into them who are at lower levels of consciousness. Literally, their structures, they're still cycling through the same states that we are, but because we may be at a higher stage or structure of consciousness, we're peaking at certain states more often. So there are certain states we're experiencing for longer periods of time. That's how structures of consciousness are built, by peaking at certain states and maintaining those states for elongated periods of time. Whether that's ecstasy, a sense of oneness through meditation, sense of compassion and all, unitive consciousness. That's what they call it in sociology and in the social sciences like psychology. Unitive consciousness, when you have a sense of like oneness with all life. Like almost everybody has these at some point in their life, but it's usually very small for a moment, and then they're right back. They're out of that state, right back into their normal ego mind, right? But if we create environments in which people not only can come and peak those states and elongate them. If we do that with large groups of people, then we're gonna systematically move large groups, our family, our friends, the people who need this healing. We're gonna move them into higher states of consciousness. And when we move them to these higher stages, they're gonna then join us to keep building more and more of these environments. And that's what we need. We need to change the environments. The environments are what are polluting us. The environments are what are hurting us. See, all of us with these egos, we like to think the modern, especially in the West, the East not as much, and indigenous almost not at all. But Western minds like to think that all their thoughts are their own, that the self is their own,
The TV
and that
doesn't affect them.
they're
Media
impervious.
doesn't affect
They're
me. No,
impervious
I'm
to the
impervious.
environment. It's so silly. It's silly. It's just not true. I mean, Pepsi-Cola does not spend $20 million on a single ad for 30 seconds on the Super Bowl because it doesn't work. They don't do it. Pepsi-Cola does not spend $20 million on a single ad for 30 seconds on the Super Bowl because it doesn't work. They don't do it. They're not that dumb. Nobody does that if it doesn't work. It works. That's why they do it. That's why they do it every year. That's why they have $1 billion of advertising for a piece of poison that cost them 30 cents to make. That's
Yeah.
why billions of people are drinking poison, because it is in their head. The branding
They-
did work.
They do
It's
remember
there.
Beyonce dancing and singing
Yeah.
while drinking the Pepsi Cola.
It does work. They're using psychology.
She
Have been
probably doesn't
using.
even drink that stuff.
Here's
oh,
another
no, she
one.
doesn't. Actually, Beyonce eats raw
Here's,
food.
here's another
Why
one
is
that
she doing
everyone
that?
should
Advertisement, I
should
don't
watch.
understand.
Money.
I
The
know, but I
Century
don't
of the
understand the lack
Self
of
is a
integrity.
four-hour documentary,
Sorry.
4 parts, made by the BBC. Every human being should watch that. It's called The Century of the Self. Do yourself a favor if you want to understand the level and complexity of the psychological conditioning that's being used against you every day by
Is that
governments.
on YouTube?
The Century of the Self.
On YouTube?
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. You just Google it, you'll find it on free documentary sites.
Yeah, it's probably on
It's a BBC. It's
all
it
those.
is. It's
Yeah.
excellent, all factual, all this researched, very very.
Have you
good.
seen Thrive?
Yeah,
Yeah, I really like Thrive.
my friends with the Gambles. She went to school with them. They were like buddies.
Great.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I really like that you pointed out is that our states like come in waves. So there's kind of like this, high point, and then there's a lower point. And it reminds me of that quote that goes that regression is part of recovery, because people will slip back and then they'll move forward, and they'll slip back and they'll move forward. And a lot of people this is one of the things I always trying to consult people on is they're like, oh, I slipped up, I ate this big pizza today, and I was trying to eat, all raw and all vegan, and I'm like messing up, and I'm just like, dude, if you keep
So?
stressing out about it, that's gonna just make you want to eat
Worse.
more junk food.
Right. Right.
Just accept that you did it,
And
and
get
now
back
eat a
on.
salad.
Exactly.
Well, one of the biggest downfalls of this nation has been the television. It has
Yeah.
done more brainwashing.
It's
like
the
you were
control
saying.
mechanism.
It is a control
It's the
mechanism.
central control mechanism in our
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
Central.
That's why we got rid of ours 15 years ago.
I got rid of mine 22. I know. I would.
Yeah, gave ours away a few years ago, and he wasn't watching TV for years before I met him.
And when you do that, then you
It's
start
funny, we're all
filling with
non-TV
education.
watchers here.
Remember when I said earlier, I don't talk about this stuff often because I don't have people to talk about it with. When I recognize that there's minds in the room that we can talk about this with, look, and I find that very interesting that nobody in this room is a TV watcher. I find that very interesting, very very interesting, very
That is
interesting.
interesting, actually.
I find
Yeah,
that.
I mean, we came together for a raw food potluck, but this is the thing I keep telling people about raw food potlucks, is at raw food potlucks something really incredible happens. I
Right.
meet people who own their own businesses, people who don't watch TV, people who go out and organize their own events, people who own their own house, or they just don't own anything.
Right.
Maybe they just decided they want to live without money. Like, people are doing really revolutionary things and doing it in their own way.
Well, even just revolutionary on a personal level. Like, I was very isolated, and then these vegans moved in upstairs, and it's completely transformed my world. It's,
Oh
No,
yeah,
I'm
you gotta
serious.
watch those vegans.
I'm like like in this little community now. We have cuddle fests, and we get together, and it's the
And we
weirdest-
make raw foods. And
Yeah, we do.
we-
And before that, there were these people upstairs that that stayed up till 3 a.m. running back and forth, smoking cigarettes and throwing their butts out the window. I mean, this is like,
How would this
and
happen?
so this is like, but this is like a progression of consciousness for me. And so that when you talk about peaking consciousness, I think about it on a very personal level, because what's been happening over the past few years is I've been like raising my consciousness in other ways, like just being more positive overall, and just like being joyful and being grateful, and that's brought this new level of community into my life. And so now I'm learning things and being around people that are on a daily basis that are actually like helping me to kind of get out of the house a little bit. I'm just
How did this happen? How did you
my landlady just happened to let these guys move in upstairs, and
And I don't live upstairs. I'm just
Oh.
staying there.
Right.
I'm staying there for a while. I'm supposed to be going out to Hawaii soon. I don't know. I'm very free spirit. I just kind of go where the wind blows me. So like I'm like I don't know what I'm doing next. I live. That like you were talking about. Not knowing what you're doing next. I live that. I have no idea what I'm doing next. And I don't know from one moment to the next.
I met a guy like that who's meets people through couch surfing.
Yeah.
Oh, very
And
cool.
That's kind of me. I'm like professional
And-
South couch surfer.
Yeah,
right now.
and he goes he goes where somebody needs him. Like, I met him here in Buffalo because some woman said he could use her couch and she needed someone to whatever.
Whatever. Yeah.
And he came along, and usually it's only a couple of days, but he was there for months.
Right.
doing whatever it was he was doing.
Right.
And,
But this is what I do:
and-
make rough foods and have these conversations, and
yeah.
you know, meditate and whatever, go for runs, you know, whatever we can do. You know,
Yeah.
like let's try to do something. I'm trying to organize this Buffalo Vegetarian Festival right now, and it's going to be a big event. I think it's going to be a very, very big event.
Okay,
And
miss it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that reminds me, one of the owners of the Elmwood Pet Supply is a vegetarian.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so I told him about it today.
Great.
I know. I
Great.
just,
A
I
summer event?
happened
Yes.
to mention it, yes.
Yes, it's going to
Is
be a
it,
summer
is
event.
the one,
Pepsi Cola does not spend $20 million on a single ad for 30 seconds on the Super Bowl because it doesn't work. They don't do it.
Thanks for watching. Find more at Raederle.com.